They called it Operation Iron Swarm, a coordinated strike that lasted just 12 minutes, but dismantled years of shipbuilding and billions in infrastructure. The first wave of drones wasn't meant to destroy, it was bait, forcing Russia's 48 S-400 defenses to waste hundreds of missiles on decoys. The real assault came low and silent, skimming over the Neva River. When the first explosions hit the Severia shipyard, Moscow's night sky turned orange. This was the moment billion-dollar defenses failed. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. At 3:42 a.m., 5 Russian-caliber NK cruise missiles lifted off from the deck of the Admiral Grigorovich frigate, lurking 180 kilometers off the coast of Odessa. 3 were intercepted before they reached land, but the remaining 2 broke through the NASAMS air defense envelope. The first slammed into the naval pier, setting off a line of fuel tanks behind 2 Ukraine 312 patrol boats. The second hit a maintenance shed beside radar equipment. Fire rolled through the docks, and a chain of explosions tore through a fuel line under the base. 23 sailors were killed, 57 wounded, and the last functioning naval facility on Ukraine's western coast was reduced to a skeletal pier. By dawn, grain exports out of the Odessa corridor had halted, and what remained of the command structure in the city was running on backup power. That secondary blast was more than an attack. It was a signal of how far the balance had tipped. Inside Kiev's defense ministry, analysts redefined the next target, not along the front lines, but deep inside Russia's industrial core. They called it Operation Iron Swarm. The mission had one objective: cripple the Severia shipyard in St. Petersburg, where the Yasan M nuclear submarines were being assembled. A conventional strike was impossible. Russia had locked the city behind billions in overlapping radar networks, air defense units, and electronic sweeps capable of picking up a pigeon in mid-flight. To reach it, Ukraine would need something invisible, disposable, and fast enough to vanish into radar clutter. The task shifted from the generals to engineers. At Vasilv Air Base, under hangars stripped of identification markings, technicians began constructing a fleet of 540 drones. They came in 2 forms: the Sparrow 7, an electronic warfare drone built to jam, scramble, and deceive, and the Stingray ER, a compact suicide drone built for speed and precision, fitted with a 12-kilogram armor-piercing charge. Each cost less than $2,000, less than a single guided shell, and every unit was uploaded with AI-powered terrain algorithms. These lines of code let them trace rivers, rooftops, and valleys like a living radar echo. When tested, they could slip through surveillance bands that even NATO planners considered airtight. By the end of the 3rd week, a plan took shape. 240 Sparrow 7s would form the first wave, unarmed but loud on radar. Their purpose wasn't destruction, it was distraction. 300 Stingray ERs would follow beneath them, flying low over the Neva River, unseen by the defenses blinded by noise above. Operators called the first phase blind and deceptive. One of them later described the mission logs as a symphony of ghosts. At 0:44 a.m., the encrypted signal went out from Kiev over a fiber-linked communications net patched through buried relays. The launch code cut through every forward operating terminal at once. Across open fields, warehouses, and forested strips masked by civilian traffic, the drones ignited. They climbed in rehearsed sequence, dispersing across 12 kilometers of sky. From above, they looked like a migration pattern, scattered deliberately so Russian early warning stations couldn't triangulate an origin point. The tension inside the control trailers was constant. Every operator knew St. Petersburg's air defense grid was active 24 hours a day. Its S-400 batteries positioned in tight rings that covered both the Baltic approaches and the river delta. Any signal spike could expose the swarm. But the plan didn't depend on stealth alone. It relied on reaction. The first wave would overload sensors until Russian defense units fired at shadows. Every decoy destroyed would make the real attack stronger. By 5:39 a.m., the drones were closing on the Neva. Under 1,000-watt floodlights, Russian radar screens began to bloom. False contacts multiplied, each echo flickering brighter than the last. The sensors had come alive, exactly on schedule. In 12 minutes, a shipyard that built billion-dollar submarines was gone, turned into a crater of heat and twisted steel. The first wave reached St. Petersburg's radar perimeter just as the dawn light began to rise over the Gulf of Finland. 240 Sparrow 7 drones cut through the upper airspace, their composite hulls bouncing signals across Russia's 48 S-400 defense grid. To the radar screens inside Severia's control bunker, it looked like hundreds of incoming objects, some diving, others ascending, each one broadcasting a digital echo that mimicked the flight profile of cruise missiles. Operators shouted altitude readouts, and then the command went out. The grid launched its interceptors. Dozens of missiles streaked into the sky within seconds, filling the horizon with vapor trails and booming flashes. The defense crews believed they were seeing the first wave of a large-scale NATO-style strike. The Sparrow 7s did exactly what they were designed for. They produced chaos, not destruction. Each unit carried a handful of reflective nodes, released mid-flight in geometric patterns that fragmented radar returns into false distances. Altitude readings jumped erratically, confusing automated systems designed to lock on a fixed trajectory. In one 10-second interval, the radar feed registered over 100 separate impacts. None were real. The interceptors exploded harmlessly among chaff clouds and empty air. While the upper atmosphere lit up with interceptions, the second force was already in motion below. 300 Stingray ER drones glided just 15 meters above the Neva River, navigating the smooth silver surface by terrain-following algorithms. They moved under the radar horizon, far beneath the attention of the operators still trying to sort through the decoys above them. Each Stingray carried a 12-kilogram armor-piercing charge, molded to puncture reinforced hulls and reactor casings. At 5:39 a.m., their encrypted navigation scripts switched from passive to active assault. In formation, the drones surged toward the Severia shipyard's heart. The first cluster leveled out over Dock 5, the assembly hangar where 3 Yasan M-class submarines were being welded. They dropped in sequence, diving at a 45-degree angle. The first explosion tore through the roofing section, breaking open a half-completed pressure hull. The next 10 impacts followed like mechanical percussion, cutting through gantries and scaffolding. Within seconds, alarms blared across the district. Russian firefighters stationed at the northern gate reported a light wave of explosions rolling toward them. As the initial blasts echoed, secondary charges erupted across the welding complex. Fuel storage drums ignited, sending roaring jets of flame into cranes overhead. The steel foundry, positioned less than 200 meters from the submarine bay, went next. Its ceiling collapsed instantly under 2 direct hits. A cascade of molten metal spilled across the floor, setting off another round of detonations. 13 major explosions rocked the plant in under 2 minutes. The chain reaction didn't stop there. Reactor housings under construction ruptured under the strain of shockwaves. Thick reactor shielding plates flew off their mounts and crashed through adjoining workshops. A control crane toppled sideways, slicing through electrical conduits that powered the dry docks. With power gone, automated suppression systems failed. The core of Severia became an open flame zone visible for kilometers. By 5:51 a.m., less than 12 minutes after the first Sparrow lifted off radar, the shipyard was a burning ruin. 3 nuclear submarines under construction were destroyed, their reactor sections shattered beyond repair. Fuel depots, support cranes, and assembly lines were lost in the blaze. The very defenses meant to guard the city had been drained hours earlier, their interceptor reserves spent on drones worth a few $1,000s each. For Russia's northern fleet, the loss meant more than infrastructure. It crippled production for years to come. When the smoke finally cleared, the damage reached an estimated $2.5 billion. And the idea of what defense meant was rewritten across every command room watching the feed. The Severia strike proved that agility and deception could dismantle power priced in billions. Military analysts called it a pivotal moment in modern warfare, where cheap machines outsmarted complex defenses. Experts in Washington warned that a $2,000 drone could rival a $200 million warship. NATO officials described Operation Iron Swarm as a textbook example of low-cost, high-impact warfare. And they were right. Armies built around heavy arsenals must now prepare for swarms, not missiles. 12 minutes of flight reshaped decades of strategy, and every major power is now racing to master the new language of autonomous battle.